2.
Good evening. If you've ever been hurt on the job, you know how important workers' compensation can be.
Inside the studio, out to 50 million viewers nationwide.
But it's estimated that 1 in 5 people injured at work file false claims. Stay home.
Dateline NBC airs 3 nights a week without a hitch.
And you pay the bill. It's not always easy to start over again. Hello? Pardon?
Well, not quite. Even the Jane Pauley is human, and on occasion will make flubs.
We'll be back next Wednesday with another question of the week. And we'll see you here. Take it again, please.
Same goes for the polished Adonis known as Stone Phillips. The two tape their segments separately and come together often live for various shots on the desk.
Greetings.
Once inside the studio, it's all business. Not.
My zipper was down when I was coming in the studio. That's what I was joking about. There we go.
But there's an enormous staff here. Each story gets a researcher, an associate producer, a producer who kind of becomes the quarterback of that particular project, and then the correspondent, cameraman, sound man. Most of the interviews that we do are 2-camera interviews.
Going back to your days in Atlanta where you got to your start, basically going out with one other person, a lot more teamwork now, a lot of different personalities. How do you bring it all together for, an effective news story?
It can be difficult to get everybody together and get everybody on the same page, if you will, in doing one of these pieces, but actually I'm happy to say that when you're the correspondent involved, you usually have the last words.
Now, all 3 shows are taped on Tuesday, but Stone and Jane, as well as the rest of the staff, do work throughout the rest of the week to change segments as events are constantly breaking.
Dr. Darnick has called Ellen McFarland.
While Stone was lured away from ABC after 6 years with 2020,
So no one will know. This is television.
Jane was the mid-70s phenom breaking in on the Today Show at age 25.
Oh, I still miss it somewhat. I talk to Bryant from time to time. A live television show is very spontaneous, or it should look that way. You might be preparing for 3, 5, or 6 interviews in the course of a 2-hour Today Show. Now, on a news magazine, I can sit down and do an interview with no notes and talk for, if I want, to indulge myself, an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then take that interview into an edit room and boil it down to its essence.
We'll continue tomorrow night, including asking Jane Pauley how she would have handled the Connie Chung interview with Newt Gingrich's mother. You know what we're talking about. Tune in. Until then, at NBC Studios in New York, I'm Pete Yaksick, 28 Eyewitness News.
From our studios in New York, here is Stone Phillips.
Good evening.
Dateline NBC, 3 nights a week, the TV news magazine with the fastest growing audience.
And bringing Maryland back to life wasn't even the most expensive part of that commercial. It was
With the relatively young newsman Stone Phillips, age 40, that may be part of the appeal. Or is it all-American gal Jane Pauley?
All the following events happened during the 2nd week of January. Do you know what year it was?
Airlines began inspecting carry-on luggage. The Dolphins won the Super Bowl. We are the only news magazine that is doing better now than we were last year. All of the other news magazines are losing audience while we gain, and I don't know why.
I think it's the chemistry of the show. I think it's the fact that we have developed franchises, Picture of the Week, Question of the Week, the Dateline Health Line, Dateline State of the Art, those kinds of things. They're fun to do. I mean, I enjoy watching those. Unlike ABC News, we're not fighting 2020 or prime time or day one. We're not fighting our own people looking for stories. We're all on the same page working.
Now, obviously, it's not just Jane and Stone. There's a dozen other correspondents, along with 200 other people, cameramen, editors, and producers who all work to make it happen. And we're told the operating budget is about the same as a weekly news magazine.
Hey, WBRE and everybody in Scranton, how you doing?
Meantime, we run into NBC weatherman Al Roker as he pays a visit of romance to the Dateline floor. Who's the prettiest correspondent?
I'd have to go with Deborah Roberts.
Why is that?
I'm engaged to her.
Now, wait a minute. She's too good for him. Too pretty. Now back to the nuts and bolts of the Dateline investigative format.
Most of the interviews that we do are two-camera interviews because the interview process is very, very important to what we do. I mean, we want to try to draw out the story and tell it through interview as opposed to a lot of narration and copy. And so the smoother it feels on the air, the more elegantly it's told, you can be sure the more work was required.
The Connie Chung interview with Newt Gingrich's mother, how have you handled it?
I prefer to do an interview a little more straightforward than that. That's not my style. But I don't think it's for me to second guess.
We'll continue our series with an even lighter look at Jane and Stone. Until then, at NBC Studios in New York, I'm Pete Yaksick, 28 Eyewitness News.
We're getting tape up to speed. Very quiet, please, for recording.
The big time, so to say, network news.
I think, fine.
Professionalism mixed with newsroom shenanigans. Jane, along with Stone, the anchors, the stars of Dateline NBC.
We'll see you here for Dateline Friday at 9 Eastern.
No, not a chance.
Love me tender. Love me true.
You're really good.
Despite my modest crooning, I couldn't coax Jane into doing a little Elvis, as she did on Late Night with Conan O'Brien the same day as our interview.
It's Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Tonight, Jane Pauley.
For my darling, I love you.
She really loves you.
But we could talk about how this journalist, wife and mother, juggles work and family. 3 kids. How do you balance it?
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think so far that I've been very smart in one way in particular. I go to bed when I'm tired. Fatigue is the enemy. It's the enemy of the job and it's the enemy at home. And I think part of the secret of our healthy family life is the degree to which we don't bring our work home. It's not a rule, just don't.
Roger Dardick has called Ellen McFarland's book defamatory, but so far he has taken no legal action.
Who was your idol growing up in the 60s and 70s?
Well, we listened to Huntley and Brinkley, and after Huntley and Brinkley, we listened to Mr. Chancellor. So I actually grew up liking NBC News.
Stone, though, got his network start on ABC's 2020.
I think NBC is a more aggressive, a younger, leaner news operation than ABC. I think it's less arrogant in a good way. I think we're the only news magazine show right now that's showing increases where everybody else is on the downward slide. So that says something about this show.
Stone's hip.
Let me tell you, brother. That is it.
And finally, to address the notion that Stone and this Eyewitness News reporter, look alike.
Well, let's see. Brown hair, brown eyes. You know, you are a little more gray than I am, I think.
And I'm about 10 years younger.
And I also have control over this interview. See you, Stone.
That's it. I'm out of here. 30 years old, this guy.
So that's the scoop from what viewers are making the #1 news magazine on television. And as we've shown you, beyond the glamour, there's a lot of hard work, dedication, and yes, teamwork. From NBC Studios in New York, I'm Pete Yaksick, 28 Eyewitness News.
Five, 4, 3.
Do I have time to put my stockings?
Good morning. More legal wrangling and a surprise witness for the defense
Mark the scheduled start of the O.J. Simpson trial.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant Gumbel and Katie Couric.
There are 2 sides to every story, and it's what you don't see in your living rooms every morning that is often the most fascinating. It's just before 7, and Katie is the first one on the set this morning. By this time, she's been up for several hours being prepped for the day's show. Things are noisy as singer Tom Jones practices for his performance in the 2nd hour of the show. It's not long before Bryant arrives. followed by Al.
When her husband pulls out a gun, it's time to run.
A few last-minute touches, and it's showtime.
90 seconds.
Katie Couric has been co-host of the Today Show since 1991. While she conducts an interview with Simpson attorney Alan Dershowitz, Bryant waits in the sidelines. How do the two get along?
Really, most of the time we get along very, very well. Sometimes we disagree. I mean, sometimes we violently disagree. Bryant is very much a guy's guy in many ways, and I'm very much a girl's girl. And so sometimes we do butt heads on certain issues.
Katie actually has universal appeal and is often referred to as perky.
I think that the word perky has been manipulated in the American lexicon to mean something like vapid, to mean cutesy and unintelligent.
And what would she prefer to be called?
Lively, engaging, funny, charming, beautiful, sexy.
She's got style, she's got grace, she's a winner.
Al Roker is the always jovial weatherman who fills in for Willard Scott and works on the weekend edition of the Today Show. Since he doesn't drink coffee, where does he get all of that energy in the morning?
I'll usually put a CD on of the theme to the A-Team or Superman or Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that kind of gets you pumping, and boom, you're out the door.
On this particular day, Tom Jones isn't the only man who makes women swoon. Named one of People magazine's most beautiful people is Matt Lauer, who delivers the news every day with his boyish-like charm.
We have 3 questions that are asked all the time. What time do you get up? What's Bryant like? What's Katie like? So my answers are 4:30, great, and great.
In New York, Connie LeGrand, 28 Eyewitness News.
Back now, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning.
Katie and Bryant are often the first link you have with the outside world in the morning. And Katie's sassy smile is one of the reasons America loves the Today Show and its 37-year-old co-host.
She's as cute as a button. Isn't she? Yeah. Whenever I make a mistake and screw up, which is quite frequently, I always say, well, it just makes me more human. That makes me feel better. But I honestly think that people say, you know, she's talking. If you're having a conversation, you might trip on a word. If I'm introducing a guest, I might trip on 5. And people think, you know, it's no big deal. It's no wonder that observers are warning Oprah that sorry.
Hey, you squirrely wabbit. Go, Katie.
Katie says she's the Mikey of the Today Show. Give it to her and she'll do anything.
Go, Ricky. Go, Ricky. Go, Ricky.
Hi, Bryant. Don't
Katie.
say it.
Go, Katie.
Oh, I like it.
She adds that's not always the case.
You know, once in a while I do put my pump down and say I'm not going to do that. But
since 1988, Katie has been married to lawyer Jay Monahan, seen here with Katie in these photos from People magazine. She also has a 3.5-year-old daughter named Ellie.
The sun rises and sets on my daughter, although my husband, of course, is really important to me, too. But
Katie gets a lot of mail and questions about her hair, which is all the time changing. And she says no one dictates anything to her.
This is me, you know, love my hair.
And how does Katie feel about People magazine's sexiest man alive, Brad Pitt?
I want to put him in a bathtub and wash his hair. I don't know how you feel about that. I found, although he's really sweet, love him like a brother. But he doesn't float my boat.
So who does?
I guess the person who I find sort of attractive would be, I think Hugh Grant is really charming.
And even Katie Couric has dreams.
What's new, pussycat? Whoa.
My fantasy is to be a star on Broadway.
But good news for viewers, as those plans are on hold for now.
I love this job so much that I want to keep doing it as long as I can, and as long as I enjoy it, and as long as the people as long as viewers tolerate me.
In New York, Connie LeGrand, 28 Eyewitness News.
Look at this sign back here. Did you see that one? Hey, Matt, how about a hug?
Hey, Matt, how about a hug? How about it?
He was named as one of People magazine's most beautiful people.
Welcome back, and Katie, good morning to you.
Although he is single, bad news for his female fans.
My girlfriend is a news reporter at the NBC affiliate in Waterloo, Iowa.
It's a 4-year relationship, which of course led to the question of commitment.
Well, I'm committed to NBC for the next 3 years, so if that's a commitment you're talking about, I'm very firmly committed.
It wasn't what I was asking, and he knew it.
Not at all.
He's older than you might think. He's 37, with 15 years of experience under his belt. Things weren't always so rosy, though. Several years ago, he found himself looking for a job and was just about to take one as a tree trimmer.
I saw a tree trimmer's truck. It said help wanted. I wrote the number down. I called, and while waiting for the call back, NBC called me and said, we have a morning news show. We'd like you to try it. And boom.
As calm, cool, and collected as he seems every day on the air, sometimes things do go wrong.
I said on the air one time.
You never know what will happen when you are around weatherman Al Roker.
Oh, that Connie. I have people coming up and they're going, you know, Al, okay, this is great, but what do you really want to do? And I'm thinking, gee, I thought this was a pretty good job.
And the people love Al. He has one particular fan who's very special, NBC Dateline correspondent Deborah Roberts, to whom he recently became engaged.
I'd rehearsed everything I was going to say, and of course I forgot it, and we were in front of the Grand Canyon on the southern rim, and I just got on one knee and asked her to marry me.
Roker has a more serious side to him. It's his dad, a retired New York City bus driver, who he really admires.
And those are the people who are the heroes, the folks who don't make big dollars and still have to put their kids through school and do the right things.
There's one thing that both Matt and Al have in common.
I went from tree trimming almost to WNBC, and 6 months later I was filling in for Bryant Gumbel. I grew up watching Bryant. I mean, he has always been one of my idols. And also I'm sitting in for Bryant Gumbel. I almost died.
We're blessed to have this opportunity. I never forget it.
And one last thing everyone needs to know. Well, does Matt wear briefs or boxers?
It's neither.
Who'd have guessed it? In New York, Connie LeGrand, 28 Eyewitness News.
This is what they want to know in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania?
Any questions at all you would have me ask?
They didn't say, hey, tell me about